was looking to make some tumbling block pieces, not necessarily for a cutting board, but I think this will adapt to a cutting board situation anyway, if you're gonna make a end grain tumbling block cutting board. But I'm actually making some game pieces that require some different colored woods in hexagon shapes, and this worked out pretty good for me. When I first looked at making them, cutting the angles on the table saw and getting the exact smooth, gluable, matching surfaces didn't seem to be the best way to do it. I know you can set it up pretty close, but I've got a different way. Okay, you're looking to make a tumbling block end grain cutting board. I'm going to be showing you how to make a better way to make this cutting board. And also I made these little pieces, little hexagonal wooden pieces. They're going to be for a new game, or a game that I'm making of, that I saw on the internet. It's called The Grid. Kind of like dominoes, but I'm also going to be, this is actually why I started doing this project. The end grain cutting board kind of was just a side light to that. And here I've got my stock that I'm going to be using to make my 1.5 inch tumbling blocks. They're 18 inches long. Right now they're not the same thickness. I'll be planing them down so they're all uniform thickness. I'm going to be using black walnut, maple, and cherry. I've pre-cut some boards here just for simplicity, kind of in similar sizes. Probably the biggest thing right now, and the first thing you need to do, is make sure all the thicknesses are exactly the same. I'm going to be running them through the planer to get them all so they're exactly 3/4. Okay, now all three of my different types of woods are all the same thickness, exactly 3/4. I'm going to use my Wixley angle gauge. Okay, we've got it set to 0. And we're going to turn the blade over to 60 degrees. On this cut, I like to get as close to 60 as I could get. I think I'm going to settle for that right there. Okay, at this point, I'm going to be cutting my finished project for my rolling tumbling block. I'm looking to get a 1.5 inch at the longest angle, or the longest measurement. So to start out, I'm going to cut kind of a rough one here, probably. I'm going to be looking at, I'm going to set it at 1.5 inches, just so I can get a little bit of the lumber flat on the, like I said, I'm going to be cutting with, I'm going to be using cherry, maple, and black walnut. So here we go with the first cut. Okay, I'm just going to check my angle here and see what I got. And it looks like I'm pretty darn close to my 60 degrees. So I'm going to leave it at that. It looks good. Now I've got I've got 6 pieces of stock here, so that should be enough to make 2 glue ups. And now for the next thing. Okay, the next thing I'm going to be doing is, before I cut that second 60-degree cut on my work pieces, is I'm going to make a sled. This is a piece of particle board, and I've already glued on one piece of pine that's got a 60-degree angle on it. I've got a second piece that I'm going to glue on. You can see it matches, same 60 degree. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my work pieces and I'm going to place them in here. I'm going to use 3 of them. I've got three different kinds of wood that I'm going to use on them. Okay, so I've got my 3 pieces. You can see they line up. Everything is nice and snug and tight. Got a good angle on everything. Now I take this piece, apply a little glue to the back. Now this will change depending on your situation. Whatever the thickness of your pieces of wood are, it's going to vary. Okay, so I've got all my pieces in there, stuck together. Now I'm going to clamp that down. So that's my sled. At this point I'm going to come through and I'm going to cut the next thing. I'm going to trim these off so they'll be the right thickness for my application. Everything's in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark these across the end where I want to make my next 60-degree cut on these. Now I'm going to cut a little bit above that line because I'm going to run this through the planer to get a nice flat, good gluing surface. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll cut these just above that line. Okay, now I'm going to make my second cut. That's my line I made earlier on my planing sled. So I'm going to cut these to that, just above that line, so it's a little bit oversized from that line. So there I've got my basically diamond shaped cut that I'm going to need. And now I'll go through and I'll cut the rest of them to match this cut. Also, it's a good idea to mark. I want to mark, this is going to be number 1. I'm going to mark the side that I cut first. Okay, I've gone through and I've cut all my my stock pieces down so they all fit in the sled. Get a nice tight fit on the bottom. Now I'll take this and I'll run this through the planer and get this side perfectly cut down. One other thing just to mention, when I went through, I marked my original cut. This is my original 60-degree cut, and those are all pointing down into the sled. Okay, I've got my stock pieces loaded in the sled. They're all here. Make sure they're pushed down nice and tight. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to lower the planer down so that it's just making a little cut, not much. And what that's going to do, it's going to give me a good finish on these and a good precise angle. So here we go. Okay, you can see I've got a nice smooth cut. Got rid of all my saw marks, everything else. I'm still not as far down as I'd like to go, but I still got the other side to do. So I'm going to take these out, turn them around 180 degrees, and put them back in. And you might have noticed I'm going to be running the sled through the other direction this time, because when the roller's on the planer, they're going to push the wood this way. If you put them through the other way, they might come out backwards out of the sled. So here we go. I'm going to run one more pass through this side on the opposite side. This would be the side that I did my original 60-degree cut on the table saw. I forgot to mention I gotta lower it down just a touch. Oops, that's a little too much. It'll take about a little less than 30 seconds of a cut. Okay, here we go. Got a good finish on both sides. Actually, I got a really sharp edge. I actually even cut my finger on a little bit. Okay, now we're going to take them out. And they're going to go together. Put them together, and you can see what kind of a joint we're going to have. Next would be the glue up. I guess on the glue up, that's up to you. I use a fair amount of glue, but I'll be going through the glue up in the next stage. Okay, now to the glue up. I like to pre-position them, make sure everything fits good. You can see I got a nice tight fit. Probably my joints in here is where I'm concerned. Out on the corners, not quite so much, because that's all going to get trimmed off after a little bit. There we go. I'm going to mark these. I like to mark them so that I don't misplace them when I'm gluing them up. Now, like I said before, when you're making these, depending on the size that you're making, is gonna depend on how you do everything. Now, like I said, I'm going for about 1.5 inches finished product when I'm done. These are gonna come out after the glue up. They're gonna be probably over 1 5/8 inches. So at that point, then you'll see in the next part of it, I'll be trimming them down. Make sure you get enough glue on, but whatever's extra is going to squeeze out, so that's not too bad. You'll learn, if you're going to do several other of them, you'll learn how much glue you need to put on. You'll see I'm only putting glue on one face. I guess that's your call if you want to put glue on both faces. Put on some gloves so I don't get quite so much glue all over my hands. Now when I'm starting here, I like to use, they say you can use rubber bands. I like to use bicycle inner tubes. You can get different size tubes. You do it for a little bit, you'll figure out what works best for you. I put rubber bands on the end to kind of get the initial hole together. And then at that point, I'm going to be putting on some clamps, lots of clamps. And you can see getting a nice good fit. So at this point I'm going to start putting on clamps. I like to start in the middle, not that it's a big deal. Put a clamp on each face. You can see we're getting a little glue squirting out, which is what we're looking for. Big believer in plenty of clamps. Okay, it may look like overkill, but you can see I'm getting good. I'm getting glue coming out all over. So I'll let it sit for a couple hours and we'll be good. Okay, it's been about 2.5 hours. I'm gonna unwrap these. Not too much glue squirted out here. Okay, that's it. That's what it looks like. Nice and tight. At this point, I'm going to scrape off this squeeze out. Oh, you get it when it's fairly fresh. It comes off pretty easy. There we go. Now I go over to the planer. Okay, now we're going to clean this up a little bit, make it look a little nicer. We're fairly big here. Now you're going to need whatever dimension you want on yours. Make it a little larger. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the planer here, so we're just catching it a little bit. And at this point we're going to do 3 sides where you're just going to rotate it 1 turn or 1 notch each time we stick it through. And then when we do 3, we're going to lower it down just a hair again and do 3 more. Here we go. Sides or 6 sides. They're all uniform. We've got a nice joint at the corners where they meet. They're nice and tight on the ends. At this point, it's up to you to do what you like with it. Make a tumbling block cutting board, or if you got some other plans like I do, good enough. Thank you very much. Well, I hope that was some help to make your tumbling blocks a little easier to make. This is 5 of them here, depending on what you're making. These are 18 inches long, and there's 5 of them. And you can see it's a pretty good match up there. There are a couple of them that are a little bit off. And I still have to go through and size these so they're all identical in size by running them through the planer. But I think it's a little easier way than some of the other ways I've seen on the internet. So Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the future. I'll probably have some other YouTube videos coming on. Thank you.